Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hadeen, owner of Illustrious Hardwoods in always sunny Mesa, Arizona. I am here to help you get your business from being just a job, just a business, and help you grow it into an asset with weekly business advice, talking to some of the best in the industry. We have been tackling a series I'm calling Are Trade Organizations Outdated? We are at part 3. These are my quote unquote old guys. Man, they're not old. They're just getting started, and they've got so much knowledge to share that I am so thankful. They're giving me the time of day. It's absolutely amazing to be able to cull this much knowledge into one space and be able to talk with them. So I've got Leonard Hall, who, you can see behind him in his video there. He's got lots of them floor of the year trophies. He knows what he's doing when it comes to the hardwood. We got Jon Namba, who's bounced all over the industry. He'll touch anything and get it done right. And we've got George Johnson, who is always out there helping rock CFI. And, you can catch him on Restaurant Impossible with Roland Thompson all the time. Just years and years of knowledge and dedication to this industry. So I'm going to go around. I'll let you guys give me a little background on who you are, what you do, and then we will jump into this conversation. So George, I will start with you. Who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it?
My name is George Johnson III. I'm second generation. Been installing for just about 40 years now. And I'm subcontractor, and I'm just try to find work and just travel as much as I can and just enjoy the trade.
Awesome, Lenny.
Hey, I'm Lenny Hall, owner. Am I muted again? Because I can't hear.
Nope, no, you're good.
Okay. I'm Lenny Hall, Endurance Floor Company. I'm a flooring contractor out of Southeast Florida. My corridor is usually between Miami and West Palm Beach area, although I've worked out of town and out of state and out of country. Keep most everything close to home. I am a regional instructor for the National Wood Flooring Association as well, so I go around the country teaching this trade. And I enjoy working with wood in every aspect of it. So working with wood floors has never been a job for me. It's always been fun. So I get to play every day and get paid for it.
That's awesome. And there's so much you can do with it. John.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm on an actual job site here, so I apologize if we get any background noise from cars and trucks going by. But my background is I started in 1976, so yeah, we are considered some of the old timers here. My dealings with associations, I worked with the World Floor Covering Association out in Anaheim, California from 2000 to 2007. I was their director of technical services out there. I have been the executive director over the Certified Floor Covering Installers Association and with that association. Currently, I'm doing work with the National Wood Flooring Association. Been on the board, several boards there, and also a regional trainer like Lenny is. So, what drives me into this business? The passion to do something that's creative. It's not sitting in a cubicle for 8 hours a day, and every time you walk away from the job, it's an original. So, that's what drives me. And seeing the excitement from those we teach and work with and train, the amount of education and knowledge that they gain, that is such a reward when you see them years down the road and they say, you know what, you made a difference in my life. And I think that's what keeps driving us as trainers and educators in this side of the business.
That's, it's that little reward scene where the people you interacted with have gone years later. It's absolutely awesome. Even with my short time in the industry, people asking me a question and then seeing where they take that in the few years I've been doing anything that I'm doing to help. It's really cool to see how much like one little conversation can make. So I want to ask, where did you all initially hear about trade organizations, whether it's, NWFA, CFI, NTCA, World Floor Covering Association, whatever was kind of, around and developing at the time. So John, I'll start with you. And How was that initially introduced to you?
Actually, for me, it was Surfaces,
Okay.
which World Floor Covering Association owned at that time. And this was in the 90s, I believe, when they had all these vendors, exhibitors, and a buddy of mine said, hey, we ought to go check this show out. So we went down there, and all these associations had their little booths. So we'd stop by and check them out and see what they were all about. And the first one that we got involved with was the Certified Floor Covering Installers Association. They had a booth at Surfaces, and we tried to get some information from them, and we got involved with that association. And from there, it just, we felt there was, always something or someone out there trying to create a better industry for, whatever industry, whether it's carpet, hardwood, tile, whatever that industry was. We felt there had to be something out there. And so my first exposure to the association was actually down in Las Vegas.
How did you hear of Surfaces?
They were, I worked for a retailer, and, installers don't typically get the information fed down to them as far as going to a trade show, especially Surfaces. At that time, it was more geared for retailers. Well, as more and more manufacturers started showing their products, it became much more installer friendly on the tool and sundry side. So it's now to the point where, it's geared. There are areas of the show, whether it's TICE/Surfaces now, whether it's NWFA, whether it's the TCNA, NTCA groups that are out there. Everyone, the CFI, everyone is jumping on board, trying to promote getting installers out to these shows. So I think it's great effort that they're putting on.
All right, Lenny, how did you initially hear about like NWFA and anybody else you're involved with?
Yeah, since I'm only a hardwood guy, it was only National Flooring Association. I remember getting one of the first editions of the Hardwood Floors magazine back in the day. I posted that in social media. I actually have everything from volume 1, number 2 on to today. I don't know whatever happened to 1-1. I guess we weren't thinking it was important. I tossed it. Who knows what? I really regret not having it because it's the only one missing. But I knew of the association, but I didn't know really what the association was. I just knew that they put out this really cool magazine, and of course, then the pretty pictures, the beautiful floors. But I really got involved with it actually, and this is not a setup comment, but I was doing the actual installation of the 1997 Floor of the Year floor when a local distributor rep showed up on my job site because he wanted to talk to me about offering product. The office staff sent him over to my job site. He walks in the building and he goes, "Oh my God, this is awesome!" And the short conversation was I should submit it for Floor of the Year, and I didn't even know that they even had that competition. Despite having the magazines, I didn't even realize that I was part of it. So I submit. I win in Orlando in 1997, and everybody gloms on and wants to know who I am, where I came from, and all that nonsense. And Daniel Boone and Wayne Lee grabbed me to the side and said, "We need you to train at NWFA schools." And I started training then and never really stopped. And so that's how I got into the association. Of course, I'm a pretty opinionated guy, hopefully in a good way. But I definitely want to fight for the contractors' benefit. And so when I found out that there was a board involved that is covering manufacturers, distributors, retailers, and contractors, I volunteered for the membership committee for a year or two. Then I got on the board in, I think, 99. And so I've been on the board with a stint I missed for 6 years in between. Ever since then, I've been on the board.
Okay. George, how about you? How did you initially hear about CFI?
Curiosity. FCI magazine. At a distributor, flipping through the pages, went to the back and saw some a training for CFI. Still didn't know who they were, but I figured, I wanted to see how much my father taught me, if it was, up to date. So I wanted to see what else I can learn, and went to one of the trainings. They're going met Mr. Walker, Jim Walker, and from there, I was really hooked and learning more about the trade, getting certifications from different places, and then it just shoot, I mean, it just went crazy from there. You know, from certifications to meeting Rollin, and it's just you know, it's just been the past few years that it's just been growing. I've met some very interesting people, probably people I would have probably never have met if I hadn't joined the CFI.
You know, I 100% agree. The people that I've been able to meet through going to a certification or going out to a trade show it's different than just sitting here and having this Zoom call with you guys, or being able to find you on an internet, you know, group on Facebook or whatever, and have that discussion real quick. But being able to go and personally meet people, build an actual real life relationship, changes everything. So I think there's a lot of value in what they're offering. What I find interesting is everyone of you is talking about, oh, I found it in a magazine, or like the retailer knew about it through a magazine. And when I was talking with the young guys, it was, well, we don't ever see anything about it. And when you look at the progression over, you know, even the last 20 years, magazines are dying, newspapers are dying, everything's going digital. And so I'm wondering what worked for you guys apparently may not work anymore. And so do you think that with your involvement through the organizations, are you hearing them talk about taking a more digital route and meeting the youth where they're at? Or is it this ingrained method of this is tried and true, this has always worked, and we're just going to keep pushing out our content in these areas? And so I'll start with Lenny this time, and then we'll go to George.
All right. Well, I think the association has an approach that it's a blend of everything. Still have physical material content. So we have publications, the National Wood Floor Association's Hardwood Floors magazine, as well as the technical manuals. They're still hands-on, you know, hard copy. But then they have the digital side of it. You have NWFA University, which is all digital. You have podcasts that are now audio. So it's an overall attack. I don't think we're going to ever shy away from physical paper and print media, but it can't be only that. So that's the association's approach to getting the attention that's needed amongst the industry's workers and industry's people.
Do you think that the magazine is still doing as well as it once did, though? Like, is it the circulation, do you think the readers are actively engaged in it just as much? Because I know, like, I have two sitting here that are like a month old and I haven't even opened them, because I know that I can go and, like, I can just ask a question in a Facebook group and I'm going to get the same answer from the same guy that wrote the article.
Yeah, I think that there's more of a nostalgic value to it, that you have it. At least for me, being somebody who likes to keep hard copies, as you see, I kept them all. But I don't think the new generation is going to shy away from having a paper copy. Mind you, they have access digitally to even the magazine as a whole. But there's nothing like having it like in print and paper that you can actually touch it, feel it, look at it, and even have a shared history of it. Okay. But I don't think it's ever going to go away.
Okay. George, what about you? I mean, you said you learned about it through a magazine. Do you see how I feel like there's less magazines in the world, you know, like I go to a distributor and maybe I see like one copy, but there's not copies for me to take with me. There's not copies for me to purchase. There's like one copy on a counter and no one's paying attention to it. So what are your feelings? Like, what attracted you? Do you think that's still what would attract people today?
Right now, I don't see it. With a lot of, young guys that I've met over the years, they still don't know anything or have any interest in the magazines from out here in the Northern Virginia area. The supply stores are keeping them, or have the magazines in their shop. But it just they don't want to take the young generation doesn't want to take the time to pick it up, read it, look through it, and see what's what's new, what's coming up. And so now it's more for me it's more word of mouth. You know, you have to be around them and tell them, because they really don't know. And we found out that a lot of young installers, they're going to do want to know. They do want to participate in the trainings and to learn more. That right there is the I think that one of the main issues is getting the word out there that, hey, we can teach you, something else. We can teach you how to be better. And but as far as the magazines, yeah, they definitely are not doing what they're supposed to do from when I'm talking about the 90s, early 2000s. So, but now they're just not as attractive as it was then.
Well, and I like the word of mouth thing, the grassroots movement. I know that was really big when CFI got going. It was like, hey, we got a couple guys, we're coming to your town this weekend. And that's what I think I see missing is there's not enough people are being told these things even exist, in my opinion. And there's always going to be the naysayers and the I don't need that and I know what I'm doing. And I get that. I'm not worried about those guys. Like, let me lead by example and maybe they'll come around. And if they don't, they don't. But let me get the people that are actually interested. And so I think sometimes maybe the focus is too much on where we can put dollars and cents instead of into a local community where we can go and engage with people and go and try and talk directly at a shop that has a workroom or something and try and engage people there, as opposed to, hey, I can, buy a couple Facebook ads or I can buy some Google AdWords and make it happen. So is that kind of what you would want to see, is that we're actively going out and we're meeting the people where they're at, George? Is that what you think needs to kind of happen, as opposed to trying to reach them through maybe online media or even print media?
Yes, and just thinking now, just these stores that that have these installers as employees or contractors, they're going to let them know that, hey, this is available, because really, these up and coming installers, they just don't know. And when the only reason why they do in the trainings that that I've done over the years, they find out about it is because the place that they work had to have certified installers, to do a job, whether it's government or someplace that requires somebody that has a certificate or something, and then they get to us, and of course they come in there, they're going with a chip on their shoulder, and then we kind of knock that off. They're going, by the time they finish up, after they're going a few days, that hey, we're just trying to help you out, help your skills and carrying on. And so they're usually very grateful that they've what we've provided for them and what they've learned. So,
well, I think there's an interesting question: is how many of the newer retail shops know these organizations exist and actively want to push that content out to their installer, or as the retailer, are they trying to kind of keep a thumb over the installer and have maybe a little more control than they could? But that's maybe I need to get together a group of retailers and get them on here and talk about that. So, John, what are your feelings about, how they're being reached and pushing out this content? And is it outdated? Is it changing? Are you seeing it being done differently?
Well, I've been very fortunate, in fact, that I've been with the Floor Covering Installer magazine for a number of years. Back in the, I think, early 2000, late 90s, I was writing articles for them when they were doing print. And we had this conversation a couple of years ago with the staff, because I am the editorial director over there. And so they asked me, what do you think about going digital with all of our magazine? I thought, wow, that's a big step, because you've had these hard print magazines out for years and years and years, and it's going to be a change. And see, I'm from the old school where I've got that magazine in front of me, yeah, sitting on my desk, I can pull it out whenever I want. But I also realize the world's changing. So now, everything's going digital. Well, FCImag.com now is digital. Very, very few hard copies are getting published. They still do a few, but for the majority of our exposure on the FCI magazine side, it's all digital. And do I see that, being beneficial? I think it's more of a change, because right now what I see is, if you look at these phones, what they're capable of now, oh my gosh, internet, they're little mini computers.
Yeah.
If you ever sit in an airport when you're waiting for your flight, look at the number of people on their cell phones. When you get with a group of younger adults, every single one of them, they're active on social media. They're interacting with each other on their phones. So I think, the older generation enjoys having print to read, but it's that the couple of generations down the road now are looking at more of just getting all their information instantly on their phones, because they have access to it 24/7, and everything's in their phone now. They don't have to carry anything they don't have to carry anything. It's just their phone, and they have access to the world. So I think you're going to see more and more things going digital. I mean, look at us right now, Zoom meeting. Whoever thought of this a few years ago, and having the opportunity to actually be on screen with each other, having a discussion. So
the Jetsons, man, the Jetsons.
It is. It is. It's amazing what's going on right now. So I think you will see everything moving. It is right now. Everything's moving.
So, I mean, one of the things that the younger guys were saying was, like, because they are so into this digital world, right? Like, what's the point of, the magazine can be gotten digitally, and some of them didn't even know that there were magazines, right? Or like they're not interested in it because it's not coming, or maybe they see it around, but they're like, it's there, but whatever. Like, they can go and get the question, because how all of this started for me was I just, poked around on Facebook, and I know most of you guys, like, I've heard of you or met you through Facebook first before I ever met you or saw you at a show in person. And so it's, why do I need these things over here besides, okay, they make some really good guidelines, right? Like, you've set the guidelines, I can get that, and I grab those, and I'm now I can install better. But if I have a question, like, I don't have to go to an event. I don't have to get a phone number. I can just ask this question, and one of you is probably going to come along and answer it for me. And if not, there's probably 10 other qualified guys that I know and trust that are going to come along and answer it for me. So what do I need? I know one of the benefits of the NTCA is, like, hey, you can call the technical line. And those guys are like, that's just dorkiness on a whole nother level. And I know if I have a wood question, I can call Lenny, and Lenny can probably cite like actual parts of the installation guidelines to me. And that's awesome. I love that you're like that into it, and you really know and are passionate about what you do. But do I need the helpline anymore? Like, is that something that's required when I have access somewhere else? Or how do we promote it and make it really stand out? So what do you think is the draw of the organization as opposed to just being involved in an online community? And John, I'll start with you.
All right. I think what a lot of people don't see is what's going on behind the scenes. What these associations do, every single one of these associations is working in the background. And that might be why you don't hear about them so much, because, they are advocating for new members. They are advocating to, bring the industry together. But a lot of times, with funding and things like that, they are limited there. But what you have to realize, whether you are a member or not of these associations, they are helping the industry as a whole. Mm-hmm. You may not see it, but with their government advocacy groups, what they're doing behind the scenes, I think is more important than what you see, out on the front side. And maybe that's what we need to start doing, is advocating, what are these associations really doing? Yeah, we are looking for membership. We all talk about networking. We all talk about social media. And that right now, social media is probably the biggest draw for a lot of these associations as far as getting the word out. But I think what you got to look at is, what are these associations doing on the back end, where you don't see things going on, that they're trying to keep that industry strong and keep these contractors out there at a professional level, making money and supporting that particular industry. And I think that's where the associations really come into play. Not just about gaining membership, not just having a few guys answering technical questions. It's about what's going on behind the scenes, what's making our industry better. And a lot of these associations are the ones that are making our industries better.
Well said. Well said. Lenny, what are your thoughts?
Well, I would have duplicated everything John said. Let me add that an association and a membership in an association just helps support all those backdoor activities. One thing you can't get digitally and you can't get through social media, Facebook groups and all that, is you can't get that person-to-person meeting, and you have to have a group that can organize that. That would be the association that would hold surfaces, or the NWFA Expo, when you can land and in person just spend a few hours at the end of the night, just chit-chatting about what you do and how they do it, and you get that one-on-one feel. You can't really grab that from social media. Sure, you can get your question asked, but it's not like really knowing the person. And that's one thing that an association is good at, is bringing people together. And so that's one benefit of continuing the association's growth in membership, is just get people on. And as John said, for every one member we have, there's probably 9 or 10 contractors and retail stores that are not members of NWFA, but they all benefit from the work being done. So if a retail store has a bunch of independent subcontractors that maybe 2 or 3 have gone through CFI or NWFA training, those subcontractors are going to be better serving of that retail store than anybody else who just has a truck, tools, and just goes and gets sent to a job site. They may still get the work done and turn the jobs over, but maybe the quality isn't quite there, and maybe it restricts that retailer from really getting to the next level of their retail store history. I can only speak in personal experience that I have in running a company that's gone from, when I first started, 18 to 20 employees. I grew it to over 40, and then I shut it right back down to less than 10. And through all those decades, I can tell you that the experience that I had with the industry has by far helped me out, because I was a member of an association. I was my own little island, my own little universe down here. Didn't know anything about what was happening in Seattle, Washington, Arizona, New York, or Mississippi, until I met other people through the association. And I don't think that it would have been the same had it been just only social media. The younger generation, that's where they're starting. They're starting with the social media network. But to a man, every time I've met one of the social media network people that know me and I know them in person, it changes the entire formula of how they see the industry, how they see the association, and you just can't put enough value to it. It's insane being associated with an association like NWFA or CFI or anybody else.
No, I think you're right. We get this false sense of friendship through all of this social media garbage. And it's, oh, you're my friend, right? Like, that's what you have to call it. You're my friend on Facebook. Well, are you? Like, do we really know each other, or do we just interact occasionally, right? Like, it's just this, it's just a word. And even with the young kids, like, they don't, I remember having loads of people, and I'm what, a third, you're 2/3 your age, right? So I'm almost 40. You guys are generally in your 60s. Like, I would sit on a couch and my friends would be there after school, and we would all have to sit there and actively have a conversation across the room. And the same went for you guys. Whereas the kids these days, they'll sit in a room and they're all nose down in their phone, but they're sending a text message to somebody 3 feet away from them. Yeah. And so even for them, like, we as humans need that interaction, but how do you change the mindset of a generation that hasn't been built on something that's natural? So is that the organization's problem to solve? I don't know. Like, is that something we're going to have to end up coming to the table with and saying, hey, like, we got to get together. Like, this thing it doesn't work. So we need to actually get people together and really get the information out there that these events and these trainings and certifications matter and what they actually mean. Because I feel that a lot of times, like, that information just isn't getting put in the hands of the people that really need it.
Well, that's the problem with education as a whole anyway. You can only get so many people in a particular class at a time. You can only hold so many classes in a particular period. You're not going to be able to get everybody. It's not going to be a shotgun approach. But without an association organizing those things and without an association pumping out information to the general population of floor craftsmen that these things are available, you'll never get it off the ground. So yeah, they are as important as having painted lines on a highway. You know, we could easily drive cars without the painted lines, but then you don't know if you're in 2 lanes, 3 lanes, or 4 lanes, or any lane. So it's a very subtle thing, but associations are extremely important to the industry, and anybody who can help support it is just doing the industry a better whole.
George, how's your feelings on getting that transition? Like, why do we need the organization still? Why do we need this in-person interaction?
Well, I mean, you know, pretty much like you said at first, it's just if you really want to better your trade and better your skills, you need this. You know, going to the trade shows, surfaces. You know, you meet so many people that you see so many new things that are coming up. I never knew that there were so many tools that were out there in the trade that will make our jobs easier. I never knew that there were so many different types of carpet. You know, I thought it was just a couple of different, I grew up in the shag era. And so, you know, I thought that shag was the only type of carpet out there besides some cushion back level loop, carpet that you glued down. So I was very limited to what was out there, for real. But this is came from, my father. This was the era. He came up during the '60s. They're going in this trade, so it was limited to him too. Mm-hmm. So I had to show him. Once I joined the association, I had to show him that, hey, there's something else out there, besides what you've seen. It's just helped me to be, just a better installer. And I don't keep it to myself. I try to pass it on to every installer that I come in contact with. So yes, it's very, very, very important. I wouldn't have met the friends that I have now if it wasn't for the associations.
Well, and even with all the technology we have, like I can go online and I'll still find people that don't know what an air sled is, or they don't know that a dust shroud even exists for their grinder. And I'm like, whoa, like where have you been? Like you've had to have been hiding under a rock. And so there's a mindset with contractors that, it's this scarcity mindset, and they're like, oh, I have a secret, I'm going to keep it to myself. And it's, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you want to make the industry as a whole better? Like, do you really think that there's just not enough work going around? Especially if every retailer that I can think of is actively trying to hire, and yet they're not able to hire anybody. So what is that saying? There's not enough people to get the work done. You're fine. You're going to work. You're going to stay busy. So now maybe let's get educated and be able to do it better, and we can up the standards in the industry. I got to interrupt this for 1 second, and then we will get back into it. The International Surface Event, the annual flooring, stone, and tile sourcing experience in Las Vegas, has a unique experience for the industry. Introducing the Surfaces Show Home, Calibu Vineyard by Jennifer Farrell. Surfaces is working with celebrity design and TV host Jennifer Farrell to develop a 7,300 square foot show home in California. The home is under construction, but due to technology from Visualizer Plus, the industry can experience virtual room reveals each month, then plan to view Calibu Vineyard in person or virtually summer 2022 during the home tours. Visit www.Calibu Vineyard now to sign up and join the journey. I also want to let everybody know that if you go into the Floor Academy Facebook group during the month of June and you find the post about tiletools.com and Floor Academy partnering, you can win the 26-inch RTC tile cutter that has been donated, and we will get that. You got to like the post in the Floor Academy group. You've got to be a member of it, obviously, to even get in and see it. Then you go over to the tiletools.com Facebook page, find the post about the cutter, like that post, like the page, and then you are entered. And we will, at the end of the month, we will find all of the people that followed directions perfectly. We'll put their name in a hat. We're going to go live. We'll give that bad boy away. We'll get you a nice 26-inch cutter, brand new, from tiletools.com. All right, gentlemen. What are maybe some struggles that you've had with your journey through being a member of a trade organization? Maybe you brought something to the table and you felt it was ignored. Maybe you didn't like the direction it was going at one time. I think death by committee is something that probably exists within trade organizations. I'm on an HOA and I'm one of 5 board members, and getting something approved can take months just for my stupid HOA of 152 units. And there's only 5 of us, and we'll drag it out for 3 or 4 months when it's a 5-minute decision. So I would love to hear what your thoughts are, because you kind of mentioned, like, there's stuff happening in the backgrounds. There's things going on. And I think people oftentimes forget that these are larger businesses. There's multiple people involved. And when you start getting larger corporations, you start moving at the speed of business, not the speed of an agile one-man contractor who can flip on a dime. And so there's positives to that, and there's negatives to being able to do that. So, George, I'll start with you. Is there anything in your interactions with CFI where maybe an idea was brought to the table, or you kind of saw a direction going somewhere and you were like, hey, like, maybe we shouldn't do this, and it's a bigger machine and it can't be turned as easily?
Well, with me, I'm kind of impatient, and I don't like things to be dragged on, and I'm still learning about the business of to make things happen. So my thing is like you were saying, it just takes too long to make decisions. Too many people have their opinions, but I think everybody knows that it needs to be done. To better the trade, and especially the mills are from what I've learned over the years, they're going just not helping as much as they should. Mm-hmm. So that's the key. That's the key for me. To help the installers, because hey, we're the ones out there that's putting the pieces together. And you're not trying to help us. They're going to better ourselves as well as make yourself look good. So that's the biggest thing for me.
Well, that's an interesting point, because from my understanding, and if you can, you're not in Rollins' office with all the, all of his accreditations on the background there. He doesn't have them up since moving yet, but the mills used to all have, almost all the mills seem to have their own in-house kind of training or certification, or they would come out to a retailer and you could get something from Shaw or Mohawk or Armstrong, or there was more options. And so it seems like the mills used to back this training thing a lot more than they do currently. And it's kind of like, well, these trade organizations, they're the ones that are in charge of certification, so we'll just let them handle it. And it's not that there's not donations going on and that they're not stepping up, but it seems that I think you're right. It seems less than what it was in years past. And yet it seems that flooring may be more profitable. I mean, Armstrong's struggling, but there's other companies that are doing very, very well. So budgets change. I get that, but I would have to think that money is still there. It just got allocated differently. And obviously
Right.
none of you are on the manufacturer's side, but it's interesting how it was, there seemed to be more presence, and now over the years it's kind of dwindled. So
Right.
Lenny, any thoughts? Like, where are you kind of at? Like, what's the struggle maybe with you, and then, with this, also with the manufacturers? Like, what are your thoughts kind of there?
Well, fortunately for NWFA, we have all stratuses of the industry represented. So we have the manufacturers that are on the board of directors, we have distributors, and we have retailers and contractors like me. The struggle as a contractor that I have in any board meeting situation is to counterbalance the input from a manufacturer, because they see the world through their view, and it may not quite mesh with what's good for a contractor or a retail store, for that matter. More so actually the contractor, because the contractor seems to be the one that's got to be there on the ground doing the actual physical work, dealing with the customer at hand. And the manufacturers, they're just worried about throughput. They just want to put throughput. And one of the big struggles that I have personally in a board meeting is to see if we can find a balance, a middle ground, where the manufacturers can still see that there's value in doing things that a contractor needs to be done, while they can still make 1 million board feet a week of product being sold through the retailer stores that are actually represented on the board as well. So being that this association sees all aspects of it is one benefit. It's really not a drawback, but that's the struggle I have, is just always putting the contractor's point of view in front of the association, so that it's not lost or run over by manufacturers or distributors that want to have a will. Now, you made a comment. Is it different having a 10 or 12 or 15 person board versus having a 1-person show? Yeah, absolutely. And is it going to take longer? Of course it does, because you have to come to a consensus somewhere. And if the consensus isn't reached on that meeting, it might be reached in another meeting down the road somewhere, or at least allows food for thought for somebody to simmer and think about it, which is not done if you're a 1-person show and you're like, I just want to do it this way, and you go plodding on forward. You might find out that 3 weeks later, you're like, oh man, I shouldn't have done it that way. I now got to back up and regroup and go at it another way. So it's good to have that multiple level representation on a board. And it's also detrimental that things don't get done as quick as you want. I mean, it took us 2.5 years to come up with a definition of what real wood floors were. 2.5 years. And there was a lot of gap struggles about that. John's laughing because he knows, man, it was tough to get the manufacturers to say, yeah, that paper we put on top of that lamella, that's actually wood. Like, yeah, well, is it or isn't it? So yeah, it was tough, but there's other things that are difficult, but they're not difficult and they can't be overcome. They're just, it takes time to nurture and takes time to develop. I mean, when we were doing NWFA educational schools in the 90s and early 2000s, they weren't anything like we were today. They weren't as organized. They weren't as dedicated to like actually meeting guidelines, and weren't trained to a specific level. So, and that didn't happen overnight either. That happened with the discussions at the board level. Then it gets down to the educational committees and all the other committees involved. And yeah, you can have death by committee, but also the committees, if they're properly run by a great committee chairman, they're very useful and they can really get a lot of work done on the ground. So if to the audience at hand who's listening, if you haven't volunteered for a committee on your association, do it. It doesn't really take much time. It's usually a phone call once or twice a year, maybe 3 times a year, but you'll get a better insight of what your association is doing for you if you just get your boots in the ground and start helping out. So I encourage anybody to get involved in any kind of committee work to begin with. And you just might find that's your second passion, to be involved in the industry, other than actually fitting the floor down to somebody's home.
Well, and look, I can sit here and host these conversations all I want, and I'll be the first to say, look, I'm not on a committee, okay? Now, granted, I've asked how I can be involved, and this is kind of where this came from, because we're working on it. We don't really have a spot. Like, we're working on it. Like, you kind of get told, like, just hold on. And so that's frustrating. Like, hey, look, hey, I'm here. Like, I want to help. And then there's nothing. So apparently you need to get really loud and obnoxious sometimes. And this could also vary by which organization you're reaching out to. So it's not a simple, easy problem. It's multifaceted, but honestly, if you're not involved, if you're not a member, if you're not promoting it, shut up. And that's what I have to say. Like, you don't have room to complain about what's happening in the industry when you're not involved in the industry trying to help change it. And so, look, I built my own platform. Okay. So here I am trying to do my thing. And this isn't the end all be all. I want to get involved in other areas. So I think that's one of the things too, is there's lots of guys and gals out there that want to sit here and harp on things, but you're not doing anything. You're just harping. You're nitpicking everything, but you're not actively involved trying to change anything. And that's definitely an issue. And so, yeah, things take a long time to happen. Could that be it, with how long it took to make some of these decisions, right? If the definition of hardwood floor, what is a real hardwood floor, took 2.5 years to make, was that in any way detrimental to what was going on in the industry? Or Lenny, have you seen anything that would maybe have helped the industry had it gotten through a committee faster? And is there anything going on that matters?
The pace of things could vary depending on the subject matter. On the membership committee, it was how can the association do something that benefits the membership as a whole. So, we bash around ideas, and again, having a committee means you're not just having one person think of the idea. You're having a group of 5, 10 people of different parts of the country with different backgrounds, different experiences coming together and just brainstorming what can be done for the members of the association that makes it a benefit to be a member. Like, the NWFA came up with the value pack idea of having coupons sent out to members every time they renew every year. Mm-hmm. That value pack, if you consumed every coupon in that value pack, it's over $5,000 of valuable merchandise, and that's 10 times the value of your committed donation for the membership. Mm-hmm. It's a no-brainer. Sign up. Even if you don't do anything, you get $5,000 in coupons. You get discounts on adhesives, discounts on tools, discounts on materials. It's amazing how much benefit you get just for signing a check or putting it on a credit card, sending it in, because I keep forgetting we're credit card generation now, not checks. And you can get a lot of benefit from, again, helping the association, because that's what the membership committee did. Now you have other committees that are involved in more administrative things. You have the committee that organizes the entire expo at NWFA. Mm-hmm. It's just a whole group of guys and girls that just get together and they figure out how can we make this show the most attractive, the most beneficial for the people who attend. And then you have other committees, bylaws committees, who make sure that the organization's rules and regulations are being adhered to, run, and if there are any additions or deletions need to be made, they're offered and voted on. So mm-hmm. it's all voted, and it's really a benefit to be on a committee. It's been, for me, it's been eye-opening and a lot of fun. That's why I got into it when I first realized that there was an actual business side of the association that needed to be handled. So,
no, I think it's great. It gets you in contact with more people more often, which is I think that's what matters. Is we need to stay connected and moving the industry forward, talking about it, what can change, where can we better benefit people. So I think it's huge to be out there and getting involved. John, what are your thoughts here?
Well, I've had the opportunity to be on several association boards, and I can tell you every single one of them is the same as far as, you think, all right, there's a straight line, A to B. We should be able to just go right to that and take care of this. It's not the case. You have, whether it's 5 individuals, 10 individuals, 20 on a committee, you have 5 different opinions, 10 different opinions, 20 different opinions. Mm-hmm. It's like you said on your HOA, there's only 5 of you, but it's still, you bang your head against the wall. There are those, you're going to have that. Do some of the members of the committee have, are they protecting their territory in their fields of, where there's manufacturing installation? Sure they are. So they want to make sure that their interests are still maintained, and, they're going to stick up for that. So it is a difficult balance, but and I think Lenny hit it. When you have someone at the head of the helm who's directing that committee, who keeps things in focus, because you can go to so many different tangents so quick. And, you got to bring everybody back in, stay focused. And even though it does take time, it's it's still beneficial for the industry. We're still, all these committees, all these associations, they are still looking to, support the industry, not themselves. It is for the industry. And I think that's what you have to understand, because, you're going to have there are naysayers in every group. And, they're saying, well, this is all they want is your money. Well, no, that's, obviously money is operating, they have to have that to operate.
Correct.
But is money the ultimate? No, it is not. They are trying to better the industry. And yeah, you're going to have frustrations. You had mentioned, and I don't know if this is going to come up, or, are the association behind, do we need to catch up? And that's part of the committees. They're trying to stay on top of things, but it does take time. And when you mentioned, I raised my hand to be on a committee, a lot of these committees are formed, for 1 to 3 year terms. So it's not like, I raise my hand, I want to be put in. It doesn't always work that way. There is a time, where if you want to be involved, put your name in the hat. And then when that opening comes up, because most of these boards with all these associations are balanced between manufacturer, distributor, and installer. So it does take some time, but the involvement, if you want to change the industry, get involved. That's plain and simple.
Yeah.
That's how you're going to change the industry. You can argue all you want on social media, and you'll get your audience, but to make changes, you really need to work through. That's where the associations come in. That's where they're able to work through, government advocacy groups and make changes.
Let me ask, since you've been on quite a few different boards, and yes, they're diverse. They have contractors, manufacturers, retailers on them, but is there an age diversity? Is there a 20-year-old guy on any of the boards that you've ever been on, or is it generally like 40 plus, 50 plus? Like, what's kind of the breakdown of the boards?
10 years ago, I would say, about 10 years ago, I would say, most of your boards were from the older generation. But why is that? Because they had experience. And that's what you're looking for, that experience. And you're not seeing as many of the younger generations coming up through. But here's what's happening is you're seeing a lot of these associations pushing for that 40 and under group. You're seeing a lot of things being done on that side of the industry. So realizing that our generation is getting older and that we need to pass down our knowledge, it's important to have those individuals on board. But it's also important to have that next generation or the future generations coming up involved on those boards also. So we are constantly on every board that I've been involved with in the last 10, 15 years, they are looking for that younger audience to bring in to, we need to understand, what do they see? What do they see different than what we've seen? Because a 25-year-old is going to look at things differently than me at 63. So you're going to have differences there. And we need to bring that all in. And that's where we need to bring balance to these boards. So any board that, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that's kind of my point, is it seems that maybe there was an unbalanced system for a while to where the input from younger generations wasn't being necessarily allowed in. And that's where it seems that sometimes the content or the information coming out fits the way the industry worked 20 years ago best, as opposed to where it's headed.
Yeah, I think at one point in time you may have seen that, but I think that's changing. I think you're seeing a change now with all these associations. They understand that they do need to change, and they are making those changes. I do see that.
Okay.
Yeah, let me just say that from the NWFA standpoint, when I was on the board, I was 33. So I was relatively a younger guy on that. And I wasn't the only one. We had Sprague Lynn, who's my contemporary, and Kevin Mullaney, my contemporary. So we had a group of people in their 30s that were, of course, the balance to the ones that were in their 60s at the time. Mm-hmm. Now I'm getting to be the one in the 60s along with John, and then we're needing the balance for us as well. And so the NWFA had started the 40 under 40 group, and that led to another thing, which came out of a committee, the emerging leaders, which is a subcategory of membership basically geared to engage the younger generations to be involved enough so that there's the mantle that gets passed on from generation to generation for now years forward. So eventually 25 years from now, the emerging leaders are going to be our generational age, and they're going to need to find their own emerging leaders group and just keep passing it on. So the path has been set by NWFA to make sure that there's always going to have a supply of good leadership coming from a younger generation as the years going forward. And that came out of a committee meeting, and that came out of a thought that we have to find a way to keep this thing going forward. And it's, of course, benefits the industry.
And 40 under 40 is a couple years old now, I think, right? Like three to five, roughly.
Yeah, maybe? I think 3 or 4. Yeah.
So it's pretty new, and but at least that you realize that change needed to be made instead of being stuck in your ways and saying, "Oh, this is the way it's always been. Like it'll be fine."
So it probably took about 3 years in a committee too.
But there is change, and yes, it may be slow, but it's still happening. It is coming around. People are starting to be recognized is what I'm hearing. And so it doesn't necessarily seem like it, but give it another couple of years and I think it's rolling around. It's starting to pick up its steam and we will see changes is what it's sounding like. George, what do you got for me? Where are your thoughts on this?
Oh man, I missed that.
How are what is with your involvement with CFI, like what are you seeing them do to engage a younger audience, bring them in and really get the industry moving forward, get them more involved on like a board and get their opinions so that it's maybe a little more relevant to an incoming generation than an outgoing generation?
Well, what I'm seeing they're going to hear, I want to say in the past, let's say past couple of years, we've I've seen a couple of younger, they're going installers, they're going on the that's been invited to the board and having their input, but again, I mean, I guess like you still have to go through the you have to have some knowledge. I mean, that's the one good thing about having these trainings and being involved with different associations is that you learn the skills, that you learn different skills and you get updated. And now we do need a fresh perspective on things and input from these generations that are coming up. So yeah, I mean it's slow. Some of these old heads don't want to relinquish their seat. Because they you always like to be in that chair. They're going dictate the things. So but believe it or not, I'm one of those guys that believe that change is good. Can be good.
Well, I think there's something to it though. Like you take a lot of time to learn the knowledge, and you're probably much more impetuous when you're a youth than you are when you're older and more seasoned and have that knowledge and wisdom behind you. And so you putting a 20-year-old in like an executive director role may not be the greatest idea for a trade organization. Like, yeah, you may get some great ideas and really be able to reach the youth, but you're going to be moving this way and that way, and this isn't going to work and that's not going to work. Whereas maybe having something sit in committee for 2.5 years before it gets approved and really working out all the finer details of it and how we're going to do it is great. But that idea could have come from a youth and then been, massaged by the older guys and put out there. And so I think getting that mix is the key, so that we can keep up with what's going on, but we can get it into an effective method or communication that is going to actually get out to the industry and be useful, instead of just this, today we're going left, tomorrow we're going right, and we never know what we're doing.
Right.
I'll ask for any final thoughts, maybe something I didn't hit on that you think needs to be out there, or if there's a thought that maybe you had as we went through this, or just from the brief overview I gave you. Lenny, I'll start with you. Is there anything we needed to touch on that we didn't hit?
No, I think we covered it quite well, and I'm sure that hopefully everybody who listened into the podcast gets the initiative to contact their association. And as you said, Kyle, don't give up just because they may not have said yes right away. Keep pressing, because the last thing that they need is to have too few volunteers. They really want to have a lot of people supporting it. Now, if they get overwhelmed, they're not going to take everybody all at once, or maybe they just have to figure out, hey, I want to volunteer, but then they don't know who you are yet. And so maybe there's that, pre-check that has to happen before you're actually invited in. And then again, that goes back to go to these schools, meet people face to face, because I'll tell you a funny story. A fellow from Australia by the name of Greg Slagarski, we knew each other on social media for about a year or two. And it wasn't until we met in person that Greg said, "Oh, I really like Lenny." Because he actually didn't like me before. I don't know why, but yeah. Now we're best buddies, man. He calls me, I call him, and it's a great thing. So you got to have that social connection in person. So those are my last thoughts for the today's program. So thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. My pleasure. George.
I think it would be nice if the retailers would push their installers into getting more education, and not worry so much about having to pay them more because of their knowledge. I thought that's what this era is in. We people that go to college and get those degrees and carrying on and come out, they're going and they're supposed to make more money. So why can't we make more money? With our knowledge of the trade, and the way the way the trade is progressing and changing. When I started off, there was just a handful of backings that you had to remember. Now, there's dozens of different backings that you have to remember and know how to install them. There's carpenters coming out that you don't have to use a power stretcher. And using different types of seaming tapes and different types of, glue. And it's overwhelming at times. It seems like we're always, they're going to, a step behind because this information, doesn't get out to everybody. So if the retailers, they're going to go out there and try to persuade their installers or get, pay for half of their training or something like that, it would not only make them better installers, but it'll also make the company they're going to look better too.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think there needs to definitely be a bigger push of proper education from retailers and wanting to really step up the industry. And rates could go up all the way around, but that's on contractors. I think learning how to run a proper business. You got to stop thinking I'm just an installer. You're not just an installer. Even when you're subcontracting for a shop and they hand you a work order, you still run a business. You still got to buy tools. You got to hire guys if you want. You got to show up on time. You got to deliver. There's much more to it than just accepting a work order. You're not their employee. So you got to, if you're not aware of what it's costing you to run your business, you got to find out, because that's what you're doing. You're not just... Nobody's just an installer. You're still out networking. You're out advertising. You're wearing a ton of hats. So you're running a business, whether you realize it or not. And it's time to learn how to go and do that. So there's both sides of the coin on how do we improve it. And honestly, it's going to start with us stepping up and getting involved and talking with the people around us. It's being involved on this national level, helping with the industry organizations, all of that. It's great. But when you see a guy struggling at the supply shop, when you're picking something up, are you having that conversation with them, or are you ignoring it and walking away? I think most guys are ignoring it and walking away. And we got to start with our own community. So I agree. There's a lot of things can change, and it's going to take us, and we got to get everyone involved in doing it. John, any last thoughts here?
Yeah, you had mentioned, that what do you do when you're at a distributor and, so you see a younger installer that's kind of struggling. Do you want to step in and offer any advice? I do that. And in our local community, there are contractors all over in my local community that are, I guess you could consider them my competition, but you know what? I don't consider them my competition. They're part of my industry. So if they represent our industries as a professional, great. And if they're struggling, if they're having complications on some of their installs, I want to be able to, if I have any positive input for them, I will go out to their job sites and help them. Why? Because I'm part of that industry. So if they make us look, them look bad, it's making all of us look bad. So I think by being proactive and getting involved in your local community, that's where changes are being made there. We talk about this national umbrella, and I've always said that, the national umbrella can only do so much. If you want to really make some changes, do it like you have been even stating here. Do that in your local community, because that's where it starts. You live here, these people, these are your friends, these are your clients. You know what? These are your peers that you're working with. Be a partner, be a friend, and network with them. And I think that's, the associations try to do that on a national level, but as individuals, as business owners, we need to do that on a regional level, community level. So, Lenny and I, George, individuals that you see with gray hair or no hair, we're out there. We're on our, it's a sunset for us, because we know we only have a few more years left. But we want to try to give as much of our knowledge and pass that on to these next generations as we possibly can. So we are out there advocating for training and knowledge. And, you're seeing that blend. You're seeing, such as the NWFA, you see their online university. So students go through these online university programs. You're seeing it with the NTCA. They've jumped on board with these training programs. So they are doing the educational portion online, but then fulfilling the certification portion on a hands-on event. So it's a balance of both. And I think if we just keep, trying to stay in tune with what the world is doing with all our social media, all our, technology, I think we'll be okay. Obviously we need younger people in our trades, and you're starting to you see that shift. With, is it really necessary to go to college now, or can I actually make a good living doing another trade? So
it is starting to shift. It's starting to come around to, this got so expensive, and it was pushed for so long that now what I don't want to see is a hard push completely 180. It's a mix. Some people should go to school, some people shouldn't, and that's there's nothing wrong with it. It's gonna but let's get trade school, like trade programs, back in high schools and middle schools if we can. Let's let people have fun and experiment with things, and look, you could be the straight A valedictorian kid and still want to go learn a trade. Like, you don't have to be the guy that goes to college and the guy that gets straight D's and F's and wants to flunk out. Could have a revelation 10 years later, get a GED and apply and, get accepted to some Ivy League school because he's turned his life around and he finally learned a learning style that works for him. Like, you never know what's going to happen. And it's not, you're dumb, like you should go do a trade. That's not what it's about. You guys are all brilliant. And Lenny's a rocket scientist over here.
So. No. Theoretical physicist. There's a difference.
Sorry. Okay. But still, like, you have something that would be classified as like, this brainiac kind of thing. And then, you're just a flooring contractor. Like, no. And the math you do to figure out some of these layouts and these fancy projects you do, like I get it, like it's needed, but people look down on trades, and we're trying to build them up and say like, no, there's a lot of positive traits to being involved. When you're actually learning how to do it and run a business and be successful at it, there's no reason not to be respected by society. And I like
Absolutely.
that the trade organizations are there helping push that agenda and saying like, hey, no, this isn't just dirty blue collar work. So definitely, I agree that it's getting involved, grassroots movements, and pushing the positivity of it. I think one of the things I hate most in seeing ads is hard work, long hours. Like, what are you selling? Why do you start with that? Who wants to come work for you now? Instant gratification, great pay, great advancement opportunities. Get a workout while you're earning money. Like, let's sell it with something that's positive about what's going on. So, all right, gentlemen. I think we'll leave it there. I appreciate all of your insights. I appreciate you all making this work for me. This was a little hard to get scheduled, but we made it happen finally, and I'm very excited it did happen. So I think that's where we'll close it out. Go check out flooracademypod.com. You can find out all the places we are playable over there. Check out the shop, pick up a t-shirt, help me out. I'll make a couple bucks and you'll look really good. If you want to help support the show, patreon.com/Floor Academy. Even $5 a month goes a long way in helping me continue to produce this content. And we will leave it there, and we will catch you all next week.